Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, badass.
Good morning.
How are you?
Oh, I am a mama that has her daughter going across seas, going to Europe and exploring the UK, Paris, Barcelona, Rome, and Vatican City. So I've been actually pretty good.
Yeah.
In comparison, just with all of that, and my daughter being gone, she'll be gone for 13 days, and so it's a lot to take in and absorb, butterfly feelings, things like that. But I'm doing pretty good. I'm holding up.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. What a huge change.
It is.
In the household.
Now, you guys have been experiencing a lot of travel as well, too. So where are all the places that you have experienced on this trip?
Yeah, we have been Mount Rushmore, other places in South Dakota, Yellowstone, Portland, Seattle. That's been awesome. Right now we are in Boise, Idaho at a pretty cool hotel that has 2 saltwater pools, live music every night, like little gem in Boise, Idaho, and we're loving it. So we're pretty excited.
That's awesome.
We're making a slow trek home.
Yes. So when will you guys officially be back home?
Monday.
Okay.
Yep.
Back to the grind. Well, we have some people coming in. Let's say hello. And then we want to quickly bring on our guest today. And so Carmen, good morning. My 2 favorite beautiful badasses. Let's go. Happy Friday. I will see Miss Carmen next week.
Yeah.
And she was able to get us tickets to the baseball game. It wasn't the Angels. It's actually the Dodgers game. And they're playing the Mets. And so I'll be rooting for the Dodgers, of course, because, Braves and Cardinals, that's, I root for them. So anybody but the Mets.
Right. For sure. And Dodgers game is going to be awesome. It's a quintessential experience.
It is. So Heather's joining us. She said, good morning from Peru, badasses. Hope your Friday is off to a good start. She also said, ooh, that sounds like she will have an amazing time. I hope she enjoys it and has a safe trip. And then she also said about yours, wow, nice trip, Cate. I love all this travel. Yes. And then we also have Kim joining us. She says, good morning. Happy Friday to my favorite, beautiful, badass ladies. Good morning to you, Kim. And so as everybody is joining us, please say hello to us. We definitely want to hear from you. We also want to hear your thoughts as we talk today. But today we want to dive in and we want to quickly bring on our 2 panelists that we have. I also do want to note that Cate has a hard stop today. And so we may end up going from 4 to 3, depending on where we're at. So we'll see where we're at in the conversation. So I did want to just let you guys know that if you see Cate disappear, that is why. We also have Jesse joining us. He said, good morning, you world shakers. Thank you, Jesse, for joining us. So, all right, well, let's get into it. If you guys want to bring yourself off of mute, I'm going to bring on our panelists. Awesome. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning and happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, today we have Yesenia, Garcia, and Josh Allen joining us. And I thought I might just have each of you do a little bit of an introduction. And so, Yesenia, would you like to start us off?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Sarah. So Yesenia Garcia, I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing for NTD Mechanical, and I've been here for almost 11 years. I started my construction experience at a very young age. I was 19 years old. It was the summer between my freshman and sophomore year at Mountain View College in Dallas. And I went through a temp agency to see what kind of work I could get for the time being. And I ended up hitting the jackpot on a 3-day assignment. That 3 assignment turned into almost 14 years in construction without zero experience, but learned it along the way, working for a general contracting firm. So I definitely fell in love with construction. It was, I would say, pretty luck of the draw in a sense, because construction wasn't at all in my mind. I was going to school for computer science and engineering. I love computers. I love everything numbers. But being in construction and helping, I started helping, I guess it was in the estimating to begin with. And I was like, wow, numbers in construction. I love this. Numbers is my jam. Everybody knows it, even my kids. So that turned into a pretty wild journey, getting to the point of being a front desk receptionist for 3 days, and now being the VP of Sales and Marketing. I do still do a lot of the estimating at NTD. Which is great, but I also oversee everything that goes out the door, which again, numbers, that's my jam. And then just to add a little bit about my personal life, my husband and I, we just celebrated 23 years of marriage on May 25th. And we have 2 beautiful grown adult kids. Our son is 21, he'll be 22 in August. He's all of 6'5". So he makes me look this little when I'm like right next to him. And then our daughter is 20 and she is going to Oklahoma State for an aviation management degree. I'm super proud of both of those kids. And then we also have 2 dogs. So there's that, a little bit about me.
That is awesome. Well, first, congratulations. You said 23 years. Is that right?
Yeah, 23.
Congratulations on 23 years. And then, career-wise, temp to VP. I think, that's quite the story of being with a company for 14 years, starting out as a temp. That's sort of a little bit of fate, or maybe cause and then effect with today's topic.
Yeah, in a short amount of time too. 14 years, like that wasn't long for you, Yesenia.
Well, in 14 years, I became a senior estimator. So from that point, I went to another general contracting firm for a couple of years. I was their chief estimator before coming on to NTD Mechanical. So that happened almost 11 years ago.
Awesome.
I'm like, it feels like it took me a little bit.
Congrats, nonetheless. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Josh, do you want to give a little bit of an overview of you and who you are?
Absolutely. Unlike my panelist colleague, I hate numbers. So that is why I went into HR. I was never good at math. I think math or introductory to math is probably the highest math I ever took. But congratulations to you for that, because I could not do that. So my name is Josh Allen. I'm the Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer at Governor State University. We're located in the Chicago Southland, and we like to be known as the jewel of the Southland. So we're a relatively young university. We just celebrated 55 years old last year, and we have a great team on board there. So I took a little wild of a career path to where I'm at today. I served 20 years in the United States Air Force. Growing up in the UP of Michigan, I graduated with 6 kids in my senior class.
Wow.
So my wife always looks at me and she's just shocked because she graduated with, hundreds, right? And
did I hear right? Did you say 6?
6.
Wow.
So, and surprisingly, we have one of the bigger graduating classes. So I left the UP, joined the Air Force, and when I retired, my wife and I, we planted roots in Missouri, specifically Springfield, Missouri, in the Ozarks there, which was beautiful. I never wanted to leave. It was absolutely gorgeous down there. I was introduced to float trips. I didn't even know it was a thing, but just canoeing down rivers and drinking Pepsis was a great time. And after that, I got recruited up here to the Chicago Southland. And I've been up here about 4.5 years as the vice president and chief HR officer. And it's been great for my family. We have 2 daughters, a soon to be first grader, and we recently adopted our youngest daughter, and she is 18 months. And somehow she has my attitude already. So take what you want from that, but she's just as stubborn as me. And it's just been great. We live on a few acres. Moved up here. She decided beekeeping. And so we raise bees and have honey. And when I say we raise bees, she does everything. It is absolutely hers. If I need to lift something, that's my role in her passion. But it's been really great being in. We actually live in Northwest Indiana, and it's not as hot as Southern Missouri, which I appreciate. But I'm ready for it to get hotter. I think today it's supposed to be 76, and this is going to be one of our hottest days of the year so far. So, but that's a little bit about me. So I really appreciate being on here to both Sarah and Cate. So thank you for the invite.
Yeah, we're super excited about having you on. First, just also thank you for your service in the military, and we're also just excited to have a good combination today. You know, we have still, individuals that are representing their area of expertise in education and construction. And today we're going to be focusing on navigating cause and effect in leadership. And so I love that we have a diverse area, education and then construction. So, a lot of people will think that education is gearing people for the professional world. Construction, a lot of people think that construction is more labor, things like that, but they also they have to deal with the profession of business and things like that. So it's a good combination of everything from blue collar to white collar in, I think, what we're going to be talking about. And then also the experience that you bring with military, with leadership as well. We have a very well-rounded group today in handling this topic. And so, as you guys know, this month we are focusing on the law of cause and effect. And so we wanted to start off with having you share with us an example of where intentional action led to unexpected ripple effects within your team. And so maybe, Josh, you might want to start this one off. So example where intentional action led to unexpected ripple effects within your team.
Yeah, that's a great question. And higher ed, pre-COVID, everybody was on campus. Higher ed did not have remote work. For you to tell me, outside of teaching online, our staff was full on campus. When COVID hit, when I was at Missouri State, we went fully remote, probably from March to, let's say, August of that year. Governor State University, they were fully remote. I think they came back in fall of 21 as I was onboarding with them. So higher ed, we see across the nation, a lot of companies just transition right back to in-office. Bring it back. We're not doing remote work, and we're just getting back to, as they call it, normal operations. Mm-hmm. One thing a lot of universities did, which I'm really proud of, and Governor State University is one of them, is we never transitioned back to fully in person. We have a hybrid flex schedule. Now, with that, we've been doing that for about the 3.5 years I've been there, close to 4. But now some positions, we're looking at maybe bringing back fully on campus again. And those are the decisions that will create a ripple effect. And when I say ripple effect, we're talking turnover rates, retention rates, and potential salary, right?
Yeah.
But so I'm a huge advocate for hybrid and remote work because it's proven effective. But we also know some people can't work remote. But the nice thing is most of our professionals will raise their hand and say, yeah, remote work's not for me. I'm going to come back full on campus. I'm proud to say my team, I have no issues with their remote work. They actually perform probably higher, like most of us do. And unfortunately, some of us work longer hours, right? So when we're remote, because we start earlier, we get the kids off to school, the coffee's done, we start working. And then at the end of the day, we don't have that commute back home. So we just are like, oh, okay, another 30 minutes. I can get, a few emails knocked out, another meeting knocked out. And those are the people, when I look at making decisions, specifically remote work in this case, what's the end impact on that? And a year from now, what are we going to see? So if we went to full on campus, right now, Governor State has one of the lowest turnover rates in the state of Illinois for employees. I think our third quarter numbers was 0.9%, where higher education is averaging 15%. But that's because we allow that hybrid flex work schedule. So those are the pieces I'm always thinking about of, okay, if I listen to so-and-so that says I need all my people on campus, what's going to be the impact to turnover rates? Because we could lose very highly qualified employees at our university.
I think it's a very important point. And I think that as Yesenia talks, she will probably have a different perspective being in construction because people have to be at their job doing work. But for us, as an example, we've been IT. I have worked at the company for 17 years and have been remote, 100% remote, our entire company for 17 years, and have a history of 30 years of being remote. So it's unheard of for us, for a remote company being that long and that well established. So when COVID happened, the only difference was that I now had my daughter here and I also had my husband here. So it was like adding that dynamic. But for us, we really spent time helping to educate people on being remote. We were always very intentional in being remote because we were able to get talent from anywhere in the United States. And we also ended up expanding, and now we have someone in Canada. We have 4 in South Africa. So being totally remote allows you to be able to get talent in places that you may not be able to do. And one of the things that I have found, like you said, is that you have to interview for people on whether they can be remote. There are some people that are like, this isn't for me. And they also have to recognize that too. And so you also have to interview that. If you're 100% remote, we had to interview for that and see, is this person really going to be able to work from a remote and be able to self-motivate? Because it really requires a lot of self-accountability, self-motivation. But one of the things that we really did was setting up intentionally different types of goals. And this is what we need from you. And it doesn't matter what time of the day. And Cate and I can tell you that I have lots of clients West Coast, so I'm working late. I don't get up as early. And then sometimes I have to get up early for other groups. So for the South African group, or if I'm talking to people that are in Europe, you have to get up a little bit earlier to be able to have those conversations. So it's that flexibility in both ways, not only for the company, but also for you to be able to go and do the things that you want. Like Cate's now been traveling for 3 weeks and she's still working. So she's working, for half days for 2 weeks. She took a vacation, but she's still working remotely and scheduling that. So I think that's a good testament to working remote and being intentional, but also the ripple effects of being able to keep people.
Yeah, I think to your point, when you interview for remote, like COVID was a wild time, right? Because everybody was remote, and you would see like cats walk across the screen. You would see, kids throwing balls in the background. And then, when we kind of transitioned out of that, then remote became a more professional and day-to-day operation, right? Like, wear what you would wear to work. Right. I don't want to see pajamas at remote work, especially in meetings. But yeah, it was a wild time. But I think that's where a lot of organizations, and I'm really proud of higher ed for that, just making that decision to continue remote work and just tailor it to make sure it's still a professional environment for our faculty, staff, and students.
And I do think that there's negative aspects to it as well that you have to be careful about. Like I have found working too much, working from home, not getting up and getting the exercise that you need, like lots of different negative things that can come from it as well that people need to be mindful. And I would say one of the things we talked about is the younger generation. When you were younger and earlier in your career, you needed that little bit of more camaraderie and the conversation and going into lunch and all of those types of things. And I'm not sure that if I was younger, I wouldn't still want that, because that's a part of also connecting with people, where as you get older, you find different ways to connect, and you're like, no, I can talk to you remotely. Like, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about, what do they call it? Water cooler talks, right?
Yeah.
And when I was fully remote during COVID, like I missed that, because I had, came out of the military and we just went fully remote. I was used to that camaraderie and talking and just that back and forth banter. I mean, there's something about seeing a smiling face in person that really makes your day. So,
yeah. All right, Yesenia. So, being in the construction industry, you probably have a little bit of a different perspective, or you might have had different thoughts on this question. So the question was an example related to cause and effect, that where intentional action led to unexpected ripple effects within your team.
Yes, and I do have an example, but before I go into that, I want to add about the remote work, being in construction. NTD has actually always been flexible even before COVID. So we've had that more or less, obviously, in the office. Field has to be in the field or else work doesn't get done. But office people, we always had, a laptop, and we have the ability to work from home if needed. And of course, COVID definitely did totally change that for a little while. And I was one of the ones that would still wake up and get dressed as if I was going into the office every day. I would have my heels. I think my husband would look at me like, are you serious right now? Yes, I have to stay in my routine,
It's that mindset, right?
It's the mindset. And then I still did happy hours online with my clients, because I needed to stay in front of them. Like, that is one of the things I feel like helped NTD stayed connected with the client, even though we were going through an unknown time. It was still really nice to be able to connect in that way. So being able to do both, for me, I can do both. I can either stay, working remote, or I love being in person also, because, our teammates get to bounce ideas off of each other. Sometimes we'll learn something that they're struggling through, whether it's personal or professional, and we're able to talk through it. So that does help to be in person also. So I just wanted to add a little bit of my perspective on that. I absolutely do not see working remotely being a bad thing at all. I think it's great to be able to be flexible.
Great.
To answer or give an example, especially recently for me and my team, I decided to implement a daily huddle. It's one of those things that I've been hearing a lot about, like in the lean construction. Yeah. I'm like, what is this? Is there something that I can utilize to help our sales team? And I really had no clue. I kept digging into it. I'm like, I feel like I have to do something to help our team really collaborate better. We have our weekly sales meetings, but that's a long time, right?
Right.
We had a couple of new employees that we hired, another sales and estimating guy, and a director of engineering, which is new to our firm, having an engineer on staff. So I thought, well, what can I do? What is, and I, it's like light bulb. I'm like, I've been thinking about a daily huddle forever. This is the perfect time. So within a week of their hire date, this was in March, so just a couple of months ago, I implemented a daily huddle. It's 3:00 every day in my office to keep it very informal. I have a couch. I have extra chairs. We all fit in here. There's, I don't know, up to 7 of us. They come into my office, and we go around the room. We talk about hot topics. Okay, what's hot on your plate right now that maybe one of us can help with. After we go around the room to go through that, we go over any important meetings, any client visits, anything like that needs to happen between, after 3:00 and tomorrow. It's always the next day. Is somebody covering this or that? And I honestly didn't think about the effect of that. Like, it was, I feel like, super eye-opening to me. I just thought, let me do this because I have a couple of new employees. I feel like this is going to keep them engaged and they can learn a little bit more. No, I think it was definitely something that I probably should have done a long time ago, even with our smaller team, because it keeps us more connected. Communication is more open. It's more transparent. They're not keeping things inside until the following sales meeting, right? It's every day for about 15 minutes. Let's go through things. Let's be honest. What are we struggling with? Or, hey, what are good things that are happening right now that the team needs to know about? And it just really was an eye opener for me and for the team. I feel like it's really connected us a lot more.
That's awesome. I love it. Jennifer also said, love the idea of hot topics, and that could be anything. It could be something you're dealing with. It could be not only work, but it could be, things you're dealing with, related to your life. And so I don't know how vulnerable people get in those different types of hot topics. I know Cate and I, our group ended up instituting talking at the beginning and doing icebreaker questions and things like that. And it's just allowed us to really get to know each other on a different level as well.
Yeah, and it's fun, right? So I think sometimes you have to balance that in both scenarios, right? So you may have instituted that because you were wanting to try something out. You had heard a lot about it. You were thinking that there would be benefits, and then all of a sudden the ripple effects of, other aspects, right? Like, okay, this is really fun, and we're getting a whole different level of connection than I even thought we would get. That's totally what it's all about.
Yeah. We have several other people adding some comments. So Julie said, falling in love with construction, great way to say how most folks get into this great industry. Eric is also joining us. He said, good, badass morning. Good morning, Eric. And then Jennifer also said, good morning, my amazing tribe. She, as you were talking, Yesenia, she also said, same here, the routine and mindset kept me focused on my purpose. Lisa's also joining us, and she said, happy Friday, everyone. And then on the topic of remote, Heather also said, one of the things I like the most about being 100% remote is being able to not have to wake up early, laugh out loud. I can schedule meetings and work during the part of the day that I am most productive, effective. And I think that's important as well, understanding when people are productive and effective, because sometimes people are night owls. And sometimes people are morning people. And so it allows you that flexibility of working when you're most productive. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think flex time and remote work go hand in hand, because, and that's one thing we found. I mean, I'm a morning person, but again, I've got a 6-year-old and an 18-month-old. They're not sleeping in. I am more productive then. But in the afternoon, when we have to get them from school and daycare, I know my day has been taken care of. But I think the person that commented there, like, that's absolutely critical, because if you're going to be fully remote, why would an organization not utilize the most effective part of your day? Especially if you're not a forward-facing customer organization that has to be 8 to 5:30 or 7:30 to 3 or whatever that is. Those are the pieces organizations need to look at. And again, that helps with turnover, retention, and productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I've been remote since 2009 for sure, but previous to that, being in sales, traveling, there was always a lot of remote work. So I've really been in remote, for 23, 24 years. And what I have found, especially in these last, 10 years or so, is that it also really benefits my mental health, because when life doesn't stay static, especially when you have kids, right? So, like you're in this early phase right now where your kiddos are young, but their needs are going to change, your needs are going to change. For me, insomnia is a big part of my mental health. So I can actually kind of take advantage of it at times. There are times when I'm not sleeping, and that's okay. And I can work, I can get projects done. And I can schedule around the times when I know for sure I'm going to be, productive. But I just think there's nothing better. And then finding the ways to take advantage of it. And I always joke, and my colleagues like to hear it, but I mean, I think there's nothing better than getting paid while you're doing something else. I'm not talking about like multitasking where you're not paying attention, but like right now, we're traveling, like I can do meetings while we're literally driving from one place to another. Like that's a double whammy, that is amazing. Right. And I love that aspect as well, because in the world of doing everything, so fast, and trying to squeeze it all in, and parenting as working parents, those benefits, those benefits in and of themselves have those ripple effects, right? I was going to just toss in, my kids, how we all kind of work a little bit more when we're remote. We just naturally do, right? Because you don't have that hard boundary. And so my wife and kids are pretty used to me saying, okay, I'll be done at today I'll be done at 4:30 because I started at 5 a.m. And they're like excited. And then 4:30 rolls around. I'm like, I think it's going to be 5:30, and then 5:30 rolls around. I'm like, almost done, but when I do travel and I have the flexibility to do this, I say, okay, I'm only going to work, 50% is 4 hours a day, and I block it off, and the kids are like, do you even have a job anymore? I'm like, I do. I'm literally working 50%, but it, that's the benefit of having a company that really embraces, the remote lifestyle.
Well, and I think to your point, you sound very productive working remote, right? And you're one of the many people, and most of our populace for employees can do this, right?
Right.
But again, we're what, 6 years post-COVID, 5 years post-COVID, and we're still having to tell organizations this can happen. This is a real thing. Like remote work can be productive. And you guys are a great example of that. And I understand that, some positions cannot be fully remote. But that flex time, that remote work, like it's important to that mental health of an employee. We have enough stressors in this world. Why are we putting more on our employees? And, we always have a saying, organization is putting the human back in human resources. And, really looking at the human aspect of, like you said, Cate, you're traveling. Well, that doesn't mean you still can't work. Like it's a double. I mean, you can knock out two birds with one stone on this one. You can have some family time, take your 50%. So you're not taking a full day of vacation. That stressor's not there because you're probably like me. I know Sarah's probably like me. Like no matter if we're on vacation or not, this thing's still ringing no matter what.
Right.
So it's great that you're able to do that. And I'm so happy for you and your organization.
And I think it's just a matter of communication as well. So one of the things that I did with Cate, when she was saying, hey, I'm going to take a week of vacation and then I want to take 2 weeks where I'm doing 50%. I was like, okay, well, here's the things that I need from you. I need for you to block off when it is you're available. So it's very clear to everyone. So it's, it's that additional communication that is important, that people know, like, this is when I'm available, this is when I'm not available. So it's very clear. And I think that's the additional aspect of flex time or flexibility or hybrid or remote, any of those particular types of terms. You also have to have clear delineated expectations and communication with each other on what is expected. And even whenever we hire people, I had someone that actually reports to Cate now. She had asked, so what are my hours? At a 9 to 5? And I said, well, what hours do you need to be able to do your job? And she was just stepped back a little bit. And she was like, I was like, if the clients are complaining that they aren't hearing from you, if other employees are complaining that they can never reach you, that's when we have a problem. And I said, otherwise, here's your goals, here's your role, here's what it is we expect of you, whatever hours those make sense to be able to accomplish what you need to do, that's where, when you're working.
Absolutely. I wonder, I've been thinking as we've been talking, because I know so much of our audience is in AEC, and the C side of that has so much field work.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are unique ways that, I know that the field work literally has to be done in person, right? You can't build something if you're not there. But, like if other types of meetings could be remote, or even huddles, there are maybe ways that you could try to, incorporate it in some way. I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't have a daily huddle, sometimes remote, and then, everybody then gets to the work site an hour later and gets started, or something like that.
Well,
our daily huddles are actually hybrid, I was going to add. So in case, we're not necessarily all here in the office, having it in my office makes it, a lot more personable and more encouraging. But if for whatever reason a teammate's not here, we have them, go through Teams, and we'll have those people on while we're still here in the office. But I was just going to add real quick, it really doesn't matter if a person is remote or in person. If that person is not going to work, they're not going to work.
They're going to figure out how not to work.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And having that flex time, I feel like it's really important. A lot of companies should really consider it, because it doesn't mean that everybody's going to be on flex time 100% of the time at the same time. And the communication aspects, that is key to all of this. The cause and effect, communicating and over communicating, making sure that, you let your team know what your intention is for the week or for the day, whether I'm going to be here or not. I feel like it's really important, and it really gets your team's buy-in when you over communicate where you're going to be, what, if you're going to be hybrid or remote this week or whatever. So just the communication aspect is 100%, I feel like, key to the cause and effect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful point.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember there was a job where I worked. I traveled, but I worked, only in the office. And I wasn't traveling. And there were plenty of people that weren't working. They were just looking like they were working, right? Like that. That is that's a constant, right? So I think the remote, the whole COVID thing gave some leaders an additional excuse to for some, I don't know what it is, or maybe it wasn't an excuse, but the truth of the matter is that a bad egg is a bad egg, right? And you have to, communicate at that's at the base. That's the important part that you said, Yesenia. Like, communication kind of fixes or uncovers all of those things.
I think this leads into one of the other questions that I wanted to ask, is that when you're thinking about your team, what's significant lessons have you learned about the cause and effect relationship between your actions as a leader and your team's response? And whoever wants to go.
Yesenia, you want to take this first, or you want me to? It's up to you.
Yeah, you'll take it. I'm still thinking about that one.
Okay. Well, so I came into the university again about 4 years ago. We had a small HR team at that point, so I had to listen. I listened to my now associate vice president, who was a long-standing staple in HR, and she gave me some guidance on what to do and how to do it, and the culture of the university and where it was at. But my previous boss at Missouri State, and I'll give him all the credit. He told me one time, he said, "Don't ever make a decision." Well, first, when I told him I was leaving, he said, "Well, I was waiting for this conversation." And he's still one of my best friends to this day. But he also told me, he said, "Don't ever make a decision in your first year as a vice president. Think about, get in there, take a year and understand the culture, the processes, and I always like to say the why we do things." Because if I would have walked in there and said, "Well, this isn't the way we did it at my previous organization, I'm going to change it," that does not make it fit for the new organization. And that might be some of the best advice I've ever gotten. And it's really helped me when I make a decision. That ripple effect talked about it's not a tidal wave. It's a little ripple in the ocean. So that's my biggest advice to leaders is, well, you might come in and you might absolutely despise the process that's in place. It might work for this new organization. Figure out the why.
I think that's genius. And I think it's applicable to those of us that are with the same company for a long time as well. We just have to figure out how to implement it. But the truth is that as there is turnover and as the company grows and as you grow as a human, things change, right? Like I am a different person than I was 10 years ago. And I'm not saying every time you make a decision, you have to wait a whole damn year, but you have to reassess and look at, okay, what is the company now? Who are we? Who am I? And what are the team players? And you should be able to do it quicker since you have, the history there. You don't have to wait that whole year, but I think that is genius advice. And I'm sure it was super helpful for change management, right? So you weren't coming in hot, being like, boom, 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 all this out. You were
Agreed 100%. And yes, now between me and my associate vice president, we feel comfortable, and I'll never make a decision without her input, because I always view, us as a team, right? I mean, obviously I'm the authority and the final signatory on things, but she's the one leading those teams. And sometimes she says, "Josh, do not do this. Don't do it." And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to think 24 hours, because I might be very steadfast in what I want to do. I'm really stubborn sometimes. And she goes, "Don't do it. Take 24 hours, come back tomorrow." And then sometimes I think about it, right? And I'm like, okay, I'll do half of it. She's like, "Okay, that was my eventual goal. Just get you to 50." So, yeah, I mean, and again, we make that great team. But now after sitting there a year and really understanding the culture of the organization, we can make decisions either on the fly or strategic change management decisions. And I know they'll be adopted okay, because we know that. But I took that year to really understand people.
And the culture changed because of you too, right? So the culture you walked into, especially when you're in a leadership position, the culture you walked into is great, and you need to get to know it. But a year later, that culture is tweaked. That culture is different because you're now a part of that culture, right? Your leadership impact has now slightly modified what the culture is of the organization. So it's you need to be taken into account too. Your ripple effect, your impact on the culture also needs to be taken into effect.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to talk about that you said. I very much agree with what your previous boss let you know or stated to you about holding off for a year. When I brought in my sales manager, my new sales manager, I let him know that he would not be he would not have the same reporting structure that the previous person had. He wouldn't be the boss of the two people that were previously under the other person, because I told him you can't really be their boss until you learn the position. And they need to also get to know you more. So your job is to get to know your position and what it is that you need to do to be able to excel. Get to know that team, knowing that a year later they will then be reporting to you. But you need to establish some trust with them, and not be in a position of authority. It needs to be more of a, hey, let's work together. Let's be more collaborative. So I was very deliberate in not having him immediately step in and be their boss, because they had been there longer, in this particular position. And especially one of them had much more knowledge than this person did, even though they had been in the industry. They just had different knowledge. So in order for you to be effective, you also had to learn their position to be able to be their boss. And it was interesting, the person that had left that position and gone to another company, which was actually my competitor, I continued to keep in contact with. And he had the opposite. He was like, they want me to immediately start doing all of this stuff. And I told him, I said, well, if you were to have come into my position or into this position and I were your boss, I would have told you, observe. Sit back, observe for at least 6 months, understand who it is you're working with, understand more about the process, because you can't make any changes about things you have no idea about. And I said, so I would, if I were you, my advice would be to go back to them and say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit back, I'm going to watch, I'm going to observe. He ended up coming back to our company just, ultimately because of the communication and the support that he ultimately was getting from us. And I still was supporting him even whenever he was at my competitor, because I cared for him. But it was still, for me, that's also says a lot as well, is that when you're willing to help people, even when they're your competitor, that's the type of relationship, that's the impact that you can have as a leader with your actions, that then can have ripple effects in having even someone come back that you enjoyed working with, but they were looking to excel. And it was also a change for us, because we wouldn't have found that opportunity for him in this other position had he not left. So I think for us, there's also a cause and effect. When someone leaves, don't burn bridges. Stay in contact with them. Understand that person might flip back and come back to you. So for me, it's that team response of that person coming back and staying connected to Cate and I along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a couple of key employees that left years ago, and we were a different company. Like you said, we keep evolving, changing for the better as we grow. We, as individual leaders, we grow, but at the same time, we're growing the company. And these two key people came back, and we're super stoked and excited, that they're back, because they're very good, employees and colleagues. And I know that they left also to try to grow their individual careers, and they are better for it, but we're also better for it, right? Because they've learned some things while they were out there that they're bringing on and sharing with our team now. But yeah, definitely, it's good. That speaks volumes on how you work as a leader when people want to come back to work with you.
Yeah. I want to also talk a little bit about, as we have we ultimately have we still have some boomers. We have Gen X, we have the millennials, and we have Gen Z that has joined the workforce. And one of the things I wanted to just ask a question is how leaders can manage the uncertainty of delayed reactions to their decisions, and what strategies can help mitigate potential negative outcomes. And the reason I added in the generational aspect to that is that when we think about like social media and things like that, everything, went down to, Vine, it was like 6 seconds, and Twitter, just, in so many characters, 120 characters, and, swipe, and, we're constantly new information. So that uncertainty of delayed reaction in people's career or in decisions. I want to talk a little bit more about the strategies of how we can mitigate the potential negative outcomes of that delayed reaction that maybe some people really want and need in the things that they're expecting.
Yeah, I think we need to treat that on a per person basis, right? It's like every person is so unique. Their personalities are very different. And as leaders, we need to understand that we can't speak to everyone in the same tone, in the same fashion, because if not, they're not going to necessarily absorb what you're saying. Yes, if you're in a team setting, then you say it, all at once. But at the same time, you take that one individual aside and just make sure that they understood what you're saying, what you're trying to help them understand. And if not, then you say it a different way. I feel like that's one thing that I learned very early in my career when I wasn't a leader. During my 3-day assignment, maybe not during that time, but a little later on, that speaking to people, you can't speak to everyone the same way. It's just like your children. Your children are very unique. You cannot speak to both of them in the same way. So it's just one of those things that I've learned very, very early on, and I continue to use that as a strategy. I understand that person, and I know certain words or certain tones that are going to get through to them, and that's how I do it. But also, I'd like to add that, being very kind to the people, right? As a leader, you don't necessarily have to be this force, because not everyone reacts positively to that blunt force. I learned to use my words correctly and positively and kindly, and I feel like it does get through most people.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I told my team early on when I started here, you're going to get emails from me that are one sentence long, and sometimes they might be in the subject line. Like, because I might be walking down the hall from a meeting and I need something, right? Can you send me this? And it's going to sound direct, but also if they know that's how I communicate, they're going to accept it, right? Throughout all the generations. But I also, to your point, I have to be deliberate on when I'm giving kudos to my team, right? Because I have a great team and I want to make sure they're recognized. And I know some of my team wants a fluffy rabbit email, right? Where Josh is the happiest person in the world. And then one of my teammates that I actually worked with in the military, I could just say, hey, great job, keep it up. And he is like perfect with that one. So again, it's really, again, putting that human back in human resources and understanding exactly, because as leaders, to Sarah's point, we are dealing with a generational employee group that we've never dealt with before. And what is it? The millennials are the ones that took the biggest hit a few years ago. Honestly, some of the millennials are some of my best workers, as long as you know how to motivate and understand their wants and needs. So again, to your point, it's just understanding people.
Yeah, I think it's that open communication. I remember one of my employees, he said that I am very, can be very, I don't know, just I am a force, is probably the best way to say it. But he also learned that I'm also a very compassionate person and a very caring person as well. So my passion comes out because I'm like looking at the situation and worried about people. So I get very passionate about how it's impacting other people. So it was one of the things he had to learn about me. And he said, even though a lot of people will feel that I'm intimidating, once they really get to know me, they're like, oh, she's not, that really isn't her. But sometimes it's that initial aspect of people really getting to know you more, I think is also important, and also getting to know our employees. Because one of the things that I learned out about him is that he is not like me. Whenever we have a situation, I immediately have an idea, a thought, and like, here's how we can handle it. I'm a problem solver. I'm like, this is how we need to handle it. He does it differently, and I respect that. And I said, I'm going to pose a question to you. I know you're going to need some time to think about it. He goes back and he has this detailed way that we can handle things, and things that I don't think about. So I think it's just respecting each person in the way that they communicate, the way that the strengths that they have, and understanding that even though I might be a force to reckon with, there's a time you need that. And then there's a time you need someone that's more diplomatic. So we all have our own strengths. And that's really what I've tried to focus on within the company, is that even though, I may come across sometimes intimidating, there's a need for that, so I shouldn't necessarily change who I am per se, because that is also needed sometimes in the world. And then we also need someone, and that's where I bring in Cate, where I bring in, other people, where I need a different type of communication style. I'm like, I need Cate in this situation. I need Joel in this situation. So I think it's just playing. It's not necessary for me. I found it's not changing me. I still want to be mindful about how I'm coming across and can try to connect with people. But I also believe that it's also important to stay true to who you are, and allow other people to stay true to who they are as well, and pull them in for the things that that they can excel at, and the times that we need their type of communication style too.
Well, and I think that's what being a true leader is, right? Understanding when you need somebody to come in. Just like my associate vice president checks me on a daily and weekly basis, right? But her and I are the yin and yang of HR, and we make it happen. And I think we're producing a really good product, right? So it's surrounding yourself with people that make you better. And we all can't do this on our own. And that's how we make organizations better.
I love it. Heather also said, that's a great point. Communicating about how you communicate is important, because text is a difficult medium in which to manage tone. I think that is important as well. So communicating, this is the type of person I am, or, even if you get a text or get something late at night, I'm not expecting you to reply, even that type of thing as well. Even expectations of, I'm just know that that's when I'm working. My mind is at work. That isn't that I'm also expecting you to be at work as well.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we think that they know, that they would understand that we don't expect them to reply, right? We automatically think that, but no, it's better for us to clearly communicate that with our team, so they don't feel obligated.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think Outlook's best feature that they just put in probably about 6 months ago was that schedule to send button. I use that nonstop.
Did you know they added that to text as well? So
I did not know that.
If you have an iPhone, there's now a new option where you can say delayed send. That I accidentally did it. I was like, what is this? And so there's also on the iPhone, you can delay your text message. So sometimes I'll use that now and have it send out in the morning time, like something I think about at nighttime. So I think that's a
well, I hope you didn't accidentally do it texting your husband that you need to pick up milk or something. So.
No, it tells you, like, when you accidentally hit it, it's like delayed. All of a sudden it says it up at the top. And I was like, what is this?
Oh, so that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well,
utilize that one.
I have to run, but what I want to say is I think we talked about a lot of great things today, like communication and what I think it really boils down to, especially because we've focused a lot on leadership, is investing in the relationships and the connections that we make from every single angle, right? So from understanding what different people need, from understanding ourselves and being able to communicate that to them, to tailoring, the different ways that we work. That all boils down to investing in a better future, in a continued and growing collaborative environment.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Cate. I know you need to drop, but I do want to continue with our group just to do some final thoughts. And so, if you need to drop, I'll switch it to the 3 panel.
Yeah, I'm gonna run, but I really enjoyed this, and I'm hoping that we can maybe have each of you on individually sometime, maybe next year or something, because I think you guys both have, I'm sure, a plethora of topics that you could speak about it as well. But thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Cate.
Hi, Cate.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, I do want to wrap things up and do a little bit of final thoughts. So when you think about leadership and navigating cause and effect, I want to focus maybe on how it is that we can focus on continuous improvement. So things that you have been doing that you are intentionally adding in things where you can grow, your team can grow, the company can grow, but thinking about the things related to that and how you can make your team more effective, and the intentionality of continuous improvement.
I can add a little bit to that. One of the things that I've done that I've taken upon myself, I'm not a big reader. Like I had mentioned earlier, I'm more of a numbers person. So it's kind of like, you're the opposite of the opposite, so to speak. So I've never been big on books. But one of the things that I picked up a couple of years ago is the audibles. So I've been listening to a lot of leadership style books, any type of self-care, just trying to better my mental self, right? Because as we're going through different phases in our lives, our personal things that we struggle through. For example, I think Sarah had mentioned to you, I'm definitely in postmenopause now, and it's just a whole different mindset, right? I don't know, it's just different. That's all I can say. It's very different. Mm-hmm. So trying to listen to books to help me be better in this phase of life is part of my continuous development.
I like that. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that we keep talking about mental health awareness. So happy mental health awareness. I think we're still in May, right?
Yeah.
Mental Health Awareness Month, because, that's one thing we focused on in the military, mental health and just being a better person and really having people that support you. And I always thought that was just the military. But when I got out into the private and public sector, I realized that this is everybody. It's not specific. The military sees a lot of stress, but so do our employees and colleagues in the private and public sector as well. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we look at for continuous improvement is input all the time. Mm-hmm. In the universities, we call it shared governance, to where everybody has an input to a process change or a policy change, what have you. And I think that's the biggest piece that we've really focused on being in HR, is letting everybody's voice be heard. So we just implemented a new performance management process, and we had key stakeholders through the whole university be a part of that process. So they're the architects for their own performance review, which has been very well received. And we our performance reviews were like 55 questions. Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but it was. We brought that down to about 16 or 19 based on their feedback. And that's been really, really well received. And I just look forward to continuing that piece, employee stakeholder intervention, right? Having the input heard from our employees. And we'll continuously do that. But again, we can't stay stagnant either. Like you have to, you just can't do this and then 7 years from now say, have we reviewed this lately? So we have a 3-year review process on all our processes and policies. So that's kind of where we're at.
I love that. And Thomas, thank you so much for coming. He said the absolute worst form of communication is silence. Let's stop ghosting people, shall we? And I think that that's important. One of the things that I've also been learning, for example, Jen Lacey, I don't know if she's still on, is also the ability to be able to truly facilitate a brainstorming meeting. And so when you're having challenges, learning how to allow voices be heard, and also how you can instill that, everyone's voices will be heard, and that there is nothing that we will say, no, that's a dumb idea, or no, we can't do that. We accept everything. And one of the things that she taught me is saying yes and. So as someone says something, and maybe, that's not quite what you are wanting a part of the process, you simply say yes and you add in the additional things that you would like, instead of shutting people down. So I think for me, one of the biggest things has been learning how not to shut down ideas. Even though you might think that you have the best idea, or think you have the knowledge or the vision or the expertise or whatever it might be, it's learning also not to shut down further ideas. And that is one of the things that I have been learning for myself, is to make sure that I'm allowing the voice of other people also be heard as well within the organization. So doing that particular brainstorming session was a really cool aspect of learning how to open up those voices, doing the icebreakers, just learning different things that can be done. And one of the things that we've also been doing that has been helping with continuous improvement has been doing a little bit more of role playing. So instead of doing something for the first time with clients, doing it with us. So it allows for people to fail in a safe place. Instead of, trying something out and then they've had this conversation with a client and said, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. Or just finding a different way to be able to say things. So finding ways for people to feel safe in sharing their thoughts, sharing and failing in a safe place. Those are some of the continuous improvement things that I've really been focusing on.
I'd like to add one more thing,
go ahead.
Sarah,
I'm sorry.
that we've been doing is lessons learned. Whenever a particular teammate has gone through something that's more of an aha moment, we, say, hey, this is a lessons learned moment. What did you learn? How could you have done this differently?
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that we continue to do also.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think at some point as leaders, the best way to become a leader is to put your ego aside. That's been one of the biggest challenges for me, because I am a stubborn person. I'll be the first to admit it. When it comes to leadership faults, I am very stubborn. And again, luckily I have a strong number 2 that she is amazing and tells me when I'm wrong. But she's honestly been the best thing for my leadership development. And, setting that ego aside and really listening to your people. And it might not be something you've thought of or want to do, but it might be the thing best for the organization and the department. So that's been my biggest leadership challenge as we continually improve within HR.
I think that that's a very good way to also leave today as well, is that it's not always just about helping employees or helping people that report to you to grow. Sometimes it's also pointing back at ourselves and looking in the mirror and understanding how we can improve and be better as as leaders. And as you very poignantly stated, putting our egos aside and understanding that we don't always have the answers, or we don't always have the right tactic in sometimes the ways that we do things, that sometimes we need to self-reflect and really look inward on the things that we're doing as well. And so I want to thank you both so much for joining us today. I want to thank everyone for their thoughts and interaction for today. And just any final thoughts that either of you may have, and then we'll be closing out today.
Just thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much. And hopefully I was able to, set my thoughts out where someone else can learn from this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, what's the slogan? Long-time listener, time fan. No, I really appreciate being here. And, I think we had great discussions today. So.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I definitely think we could have continued to talk about this particular topic for hours. As we talked, we're adding in leaders to a topic that we all just really love. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and check back with us next month as we continue the 12 laws of the universe, and we dive into our next topic in June. So we are here every Friday at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. So be sure to join us next week as we get into our next topic. And thank you again for joining us, and thank you everyone again for your interaction.